Welcome back to the program. Glad you're with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming my very good friend Emil Lee, our managing editor of Korea Broadcasting Network News and the host of St Maarten Insights, news that matters to you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Soc. Good morning, listeners. Great to be here again.
I'm glad you're with us. Glad you're with us. And our guest this morning, a very good friend, the member of our, let's see, I've known her forever. Of course, she is not only a member of parliament, she was our past Minister of Tourism and Economic Affairs, Transportation and Telecommunications. And she's also a good friend. Please join me in welcoming Member of Parliament, the Honorable Ludmila de Weevwer. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Dr. Sock. Good morning, Emil. Emil, what's your radio name? Like he's Dr. Sock.
He's Emil.
Can we make up a name
need
for
to
you?
Come up with a call sign.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have to think of something.
Yes, I'm gonna think of one for
Oh,
myself
God
too.
help
Okay.
us. God help
But
us.
good morning, everyone. You know what, guys? I'm so glad that you made me laugh now because it's been a bit of a stressful morning.
How was
A little bit of time to settle down. So thank you for
the-
making me smile.
We're glad you're here. The coffee and croissants, courtesy of the Sucre, are okay.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's part of it with your company.
Sugar helps, no matter how you slice it. Can I start with something completely out of left field?
I mean,
Sure.
I have
Well-
no idea what you guys are going to be talking about.
Well, let's
anyways.
just start. One introduction. One fact, though. This is the third, maybe even fourth Council of Ministers press briefing that was canceled yesterday. And I have to say it's frustrating. So it does give us an opportunity to invite guests. So when normally our format is on Thursdays, we kind of talk about what was discussed on Wednesday and how we sort of correlate that to
I
the
could sum
people.
up Wednesday. Nothing was discussed.
Nothing was, and so I
For
think that's
almost
very
a month.
frustrating. Yeah,
Almost a
exactly,
month.
exactly. And so, indeed,
Shame.
It's
Shame on the government for canceling this. This is just not the right thing to do, and shame on you. Grow up.
I agree.
Come on.
but it does give us an opportunity to invite guests in. So we're happy to have you, member of parliament.
And with the cancel culture that's out there in the world right now, I'm sure I'll get canceled next.
I love it that you guys are giving me a hard time for a different branch of government canceling me.
No. We're not
But
giving you a hard time
But
at all.
you know what I will say about that is that I remember when I was there, we had meetings indeed every press briefings every Wednesday. We were all required to be there every Wednesday. And at one point I said, what would have happened in a week that warranted me to come back, every week to come? Like, I don't have something to say every week. Sitting here looking pretty for a camera is also not what I signed up for. And I know that it's changed in a better way of working in a sense of, they change, right? They alternate who
Actually,
comes. Is that
the
what it
proposal
is?
was that half the Council of Ministers would come one week and then the other half the other week.
So
So
they
they sort of
alternate,
alternate.
yeah.
Because if they actually all show up, it's actually
It takes
too
a long
much.
I agreed.
So
Agreed.
actually split it in half, and so that way, as a minister, you would only be there every other week, and that's not
And
so bad.
I think every other week is a little
I'll-
bit more efficient for schedule.
And I have to hand it. When I was in government, Richard Gibson was Minister of Finance, and very often he would just show up and say, "Look, I got nothing to present, but I'm here to answer questions." You know what? Hats off. I give him
Yeah.
credit, and so you can do that as well. Just
Well,
say, "Look,
that's the
I'll
way
be
it should
there."
be.
Right?
That's the way it should be.
Exactly.
It is just unbelievably frustrating, and in my mind, it demonstrates poor governance. Not even not good governance.
But is it
poor
sufficient notice that it's canceled? Because
Oh, the
I
day
don't tune in
before.
every
No.
Wednesday. I usually go and catch up after the fact. If someone says that something was mentioned of note, then I will go back and review it. But
we typically will get the cancellation the day before.
Well, the invites and the cancellations come out the day before.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
let you know last
Okay.
minute, anyways. And I will.
It's just not right.
And I will say, like, for example, I've been waiting for the Minister of Finance to come because months ago I asked her, you remember there was an article that came out about there was a debt that government had to pay, I guess it was to Holland, and it was a bullet loan, but there were no provisions in the budget for making payments. And so it just came up all of a sudden, the loan was due and they had to scramble to figure out how to handle it. And so I asked the Minister of Finance, can you give me an overview of all of the debts that St. Maarten has? Is interest being paid? Are you accruing money in order to pay it off? a complete overview, including, for example, SZV, the money that government owes SZV, months, and no answer.
How
And
about
that's
somebody? I'd like to see the balance sheet and the income statement. I'd like to see the government's financial statements on a month-to-month basis. It's not that
I
hard.
mean, I don't think this is fair right now in this discussion because you're financial, and I'm financial. And 2 days ago, I asked,
Our Minister of Finance should also be in that category.
this is a discussion actually outside of the government, like with my team, saying I need to see budget to actuals right now because I'm waiting.
Did they laugh?
I mean, the reaction was one hesitant, but I said I need to be able to get that for Parliament, right? For government, but I meant overall, so including Parliament and then also government, because we are, and it's part of the questioning that I had, anyways, that was going out in a letter to the Minister of Finance to find out, where we are with our financial statements for government, while we're doing the same, I'm doing the same review, calling all the government-owned companies to order of why don't we have financial statements. I mean, I know that's what my old job was. We helped review those statements beforehand. So the government of St. Maarten, the last financial statements was 2022. That we don't have the other ones ready yet, so we are behind. And then we have budget 2026 coming up, which is being prepared. It's due in September. I mean, the latest it could be now is September.
I don't.
So this is why it was fresh in my head that I'm like, oh my gosh, everything is coming due, and I want to see budget to actual. So
MP, listen, I don't need to see the finished auditors reviewed, audited financial statements. I want to see, here's what we said for fiscal year 20. We're in 25, right?
25.
Yeah. So I
25.
want to see, starting on January 1st, 25, here's what our budget was for the whole year in each category. And
that's what I want.
and here's what we've actually spent year to date through, this is September what? September 18th?
18th, yeah.
I'll give you, I'd like to see through August 31, but I understand you might not be there yet, so I'll give you July 31.
And
That should not be rocket science.
And just for our listeners, because I know sometimes, talking about budgets and things is boring, but for example, as a household, right? You have a family. You say, look, this is what we make on a yearly basis. Therefore, this is what we can afford. We need to pay our rent.
Mhm.
We need to buy food. We need to pay GB. And you make a projection based on your income,
Correct.
what expenses you can incur for the year. And then it's normal that you say partway through the year, say, look, maybe we're doing better. Maybe we're making more money, or maybe we're making less money. And then you need to adjust your expenses to reflect that reality.
Exactly like how we adjust for September, because September is our worst month on the island, and we all have to adjust our behavior.
So
and
the
our spending.
same way that every house has to adjust their behavior based on what money's actually coming in and what the expenses look like, government has to do the same. And they should come and report to Parliament at least midway through the year and say, this is what we thought would happen, and this is what actually happened. That's all we're talking about.
There should be monthly prepared statements for internal use that show, here's what we budgeted year to date, here's what we spent year to date. This is not rocket science. And I'm going to push back to something I've said for a million years. How many square miles is the Dutch side? I don't know, 12?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
For with maybe 80,000-ish
Like 16,
people.
yeah, something like that.
80,000 people, right? We are the equivalent of a small town.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have this huge government apparatus that seems to not be able to get out of its own way and manage its own affairs, makes me cringe every month when I have to submit my taxes, my business taxes, or every time I look at my pay slip and I see the amount of money that gets withheld in wage tax that goes to the government of St. Maarten. I cringe every time I have to submit my TOT. Where is the money going? Because we don't seem to be running our small town effectively. Yet we have members of government and cabinets and parliament traveling all over the world. We're a small town. You know what? I go back. I grew up in two small towns, MP. I grew up in Seymour, Connecticut, and Milford, Connecticut. Actually, we don't have the head of Seymour, Connecticut is called the first select woman. So she's like a prime minister. She chairs the board of selectmen. And you know what a big travel day and Seymour is probably about the size of St. Maarten square miles, and we might be even less people.
Yeah, less people.
Um, and a big travel day for her would be from Seymour to like maybe Hartford, the state capital, to go ask the government to report to the state on something. But we have people that travel all over the world to conferences, to to go get advice. The only travel that seems like it makes sense to me is maybe to Holland, because we are a country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. All of this other travel to South America and the U.S. and I think
Africa.
Africa, or I just read that our Minister of Tiad is in Dubai. What? Why are we spending? If we stop wasting this money, guess what? We'd have more money to get stuff done here.
Oh yes, I kind of feel like I definitely knew that the travel thing was going to come up because of the fact in the beginning of this administration, looking at the way I worked beforehand in private sector and going into government, I said, look, during COVID, we had to cancel all travel so that everything could be done. I mean, the airport was closed. Our airport was only closed for about 3 months or less, but the rest of the world was pretty much closed. But in order to just sort of keep things copacetic, all travel was canceled for a year. And the only travel that was allowed was for financing, which was done with the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister back then. So, of course, coming into this administration, my advice was exactly what I would do in private sector when you're looking at a change in your economy. You have this significant event happening, whether it was a natural disaster or something like a pandemic, that sort of thing. You have to adjust your behavior based on circumstances that are happening around you. Now, for me, if everyone remembers, the government, when they went in, said that they don't have any money, right? They said the previous administration left us with no money. There's always money coming in. The problem is that you're not basically handling all of your expenses. So I said, what you do when you are in a difficult spot is you start looking immediately where you can start cutting.
You tighten your
and
belt.
and tightening your belt means all frivolous spending. Doesn't mean that it's wasteful spending, but it's spending that's maybe considered luxurious, which means travel comes into play.
Discretionary.
Dinners come into play. Parties from the government, when you're holding parties, when events are something that you maybe can't cancel because it's something that is the public is there for you at certain events. If you're talking about St. Martin's Day, you can't cancel those things, but you have to show that you're serious, that you're actively looking at ways to cut costs, and then say, well, here, I can justify this. On the other side, I also want to defend why travel is necessary, as well as, let's say, if you're doing conferences and stuff like that, because sometimes sometimes you're a little bit influenced by something and you learn from somewhere else, but the circumstances don't warrant the crazy amount of travel that is potentially perceived like that by the public. And right now, you have situations where are you handling the stuff on the ground and instead choosing to travel? Is your ministry being properly handled? Are you dealing with the problems at hand? Because if you're not handling the problems here and you need help somewhere else, then sure, I can understand you want to travel, maybe speak to people. It's probably easier for them to come. You're still covering their expenses. But the difficulty I have is that you need to build up trust with your community, with your citizens, and say, hey, I'm doing this here locally. I'm handling my ministry. I need to travel for this particular purpose, but you can't keep traveling for a purpose and never see something affected. You can't travel and say, I'm traveling to the biggest electricity supplier in Wartsila, random country, and then you never come and implement it. So what's happening is people are traveling, and this is over the years. People are traveling, but you're seeing no return on their travel. Again,
no return on investment.
So do members that travel, let's say both government and parliament, don't they have to make a report about?
Oh, Parliament definitely makes a report, and those reports have been coming in.
And do they?
And it's something that we've improved on in Parliament, so I will give Parliament 100% the credit for doing that.
But it needs to say, what did I accomplish? As a business, you say, look, I'm investing $10,000 in this trip. What's my return on investment? Bottom line, does government do that?
The government, no.
And can't Parliament request to see
Absolutely.
all your travel reports?
Absolutely, that's why I'm very actually proud of how Parliament is handling their travel now, because all the previous governments didn't really report
I'm still trying.
the
I'm trying to
the
understand.
background for it. But I'll say something after about the travel once Jeff is done.
I so struggle with this. You know, we are a small town, and we need to stop thinking that we are this that we're not New York City, we're not Washington D.C., we're not The Hague, right? We are this teeny little itty bitty place, and while we have this desire to grow our economy, we are foolish if we think that the main cog that drives the wheel of our economy is tourism. And that's not going to change. You know, we can go say we're going to build a little bit of agriculture here. Guess what? We don't have the environment to grow the type of.
We don't have the amount of land. We don't have
Correct.
the.
We're an overpopulated island, and we are limited with it. And this is the reality that I want some of my colleagues in Parliament and also in the Council of Ministers to realize that it's popular to talk about something like agriculture. And I want to again be very careful with my words, since a lot of people love to put words in my mouth these days. We already have persons here involved in agriculture. They are not massive in supplying the entire island, but they are supplying you. You can find them in your grocery stores. You can go to the farms.
Look at
You
the
can
mushroom. Look at
exactly. They're all
Stefano
doing it on
Ferrone
a
with the
small
mushrooms.
basis.
They're awesome.
So going abroad to learn about new agricultural styles, or whatever, however they do it, and bringing it back home, I don't know if it's something that's always appropriate for members of parliament or for even ministers to do. But maybe you should support that department, that is the Department of Agriculture. Let them bring back, go with the persons that are involved in agriculture here. So what happens is, because we are limited with funding as well, the persons who end up going all the time are the politicians, are the leaders. And that's the difficulty of bringing something back. Now, I want to say, when it comes to my personal travel, I'm very I use a lot of discretion with where I go, because there's so much that I'm doing on the ground that I don't have that luxury of leaving whenever something is there. So I probably travel maybe once a year, pretty much. And the last travel that I did was replacing the chair lady of parliament at an audit conference. So it's all the audit of all the audit committees, all the audit organizations for all the Caribbean. And I was so happy that I got to take her place, because of the fact that's my background, that's my old job. And the best part, and this is why I knew this was going to come up, that I would have to explain this one day. The best part about this is that we are dealing with a different sort of parliamentary system in St. Maarten compared to the rest of the Caribbean. There are, the previous British territories, and how their parliaments work is that it's exactly like we were talking about earlier on off air, where they have their parliament, but their members of parliament are also ministers. So when I came, and I had a lot to say in that 3-day conference, and everyone came up to talk to me, and they were like, "We don't understand your setup." There was one representative from Aruba, so the Dutch Caribbean. They're members of this audit organization, but they never. I don't think they ever explained the political layout of the land.
So in Aruba, are
It was
members
their
of
audit chamber that was there, not government.
right, and our member in Aruba, are members of parliament also able to be ministers?
No, this is only
the
not in the Dutch system.
Okay.
All the other Caribbean islands are like that. Besides Dominican Republic, they're different. So what was so important that I discovered there, of course, the different parliamentary systems. But when I explained them how our parliament works and how the ministers are appointed, and what I do in the audit, finance committee, and then the government expenditures, which is all about the general audit chamber and what they do, and we're reading their reports and bringing them to parliament. The public really doesn't see that, because those meetings are always closed door, but I'm the chair of that committee. And when I explained them that no, our system, members of parliament cannot be ministers, and they were like, "This is such a strange system to me." And I said, "Well, when you think about it," and I explained it more, and they said, "Oh my gosh, but that's so much more, like, that's fairer, because you have separation of powers." And then I added another thing, and when I talked about all the committees, I said, "Well, actually, what happens in St. Maarten is we load up our committees in parliament with all coalition chairs, but then in their country, all of the committees are chaired by opposition. So you really do have a system so you have all the committees that are actually challenging the government, that is basically ran by opposition. And for me, that's fairer. And so it made me reflect on how we are. And maybe I was a little bit naive and idealist with it, because I said, You know what would work very well here in St. Martin is if our committees in Parliament were chaired by opposition, because then if our ministers were prepared every time to come in when called and knew all their answers and knew their ministry to at least 90%,
Make opposition's job really boring.
opposition would never have anything to question us, because I'm like, I'm ready for you. Come and question me. Call me to Parliament if you want. But we always, the old way of St. Martin in its young parliamentary system or parliamentary democracy is the coalition covers Parliament. The coalition handles the all of the committees that question the ministers on their work, and then the ministers are also coalition. So when you're talking about balance of powers and checks and balances, is it really there? And in the end, the outcome of my travel with them led me to basically get my idea even more supported. That at the end of the day, all of the former British territories and current British, territories, they were like, oh man, yeah, your system is better if you had this, what we have. If you added in the fact that the committees, basically the government is challenged by opposition. For me, that's like the best way of saying, why would I be scared of opposition being the chairs of all of these committees when I'm ready to answer them? And I know
So
you might disagree with me,
yeah.
but for me, I have nothing.
So MP, I'm gonna challenge you. So
I know you.
again,
I know you would challenge
yes,
me.
just so the listeners understand, the idea is there's supposed to be three arms of government, right? The judicial, the executive branch, which is the ministers,
correct,
and the legislative branch, which is Parliament. And the idea is that the three branches are supposed to keep each other kind of in balance and in check. And in my opinion, St. Maarten has a fundamental problem that it's the legislative branch that hires and fires and then rehires the positions in the executive branch.
Correct.
So there is no real separation of powers between those two. And we've seen it time and time again. That's why we've had government fall so many times since 10-10-10, is because that doesn't work.
Hold your response. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. It is 8:50 right here in the Northeast Caribbean. welcome back to the program, St Maarten Insights, news that matters to you, right here on Fresh Air in the Morning. My buddy Emil Lee is in the house, and of course our guest this morning, Member of Parliament, the Honourable Ludmila de Weevwer. Good morning and welcome back. Okay, my MP friend, given where we stand, it seems like travel is a real hot button, and when we talk about the money associated with travel, it seems to me that somewhere along the line we've lost the notion that the money that government and parliament spend, where's it come from? Where's it come from? It comes from, let's see, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, Emil's tax dollars. Everybody who pays taxes is funding this. It's
But that's why it's always the easiest thing that people pick up, because if when you have someone complaining about the way something is not working on the island, what they're going to do is pick at the next thing that is they're seeing in your face. And if you open your paper every week and you're seeing everyone is traveling from parliament, from the government, and they're like, well, you guys are busy traveling, what's happening here on the ground? And this is the easiest thing they pick on, which is why my suggestion from day one has been, hey, we may need to consider building trust with our community and figuring out where we can cut costs that are, just leave it for exactly like what happened in COVID. You travel to the Netherlands for your financing deals, or maybe stuff with the World Bank that was going on, and all of those loans, and that's it. But you do what you do in private sector. You don't continue existing and spending money like it's never going to run out, because what's going to happen is you're basically depleting your taxpayers' money, and then it's going to turn on you to the point where they're like, I have nothing to contribute because nothing else is happening here. I got to take care of everything myself because the roads are bad, the schools are bad, everything is expensive. So you have to keep this balance continuously with a lot of things happening.
It seems to me that we have so much to do here on the ground.
Correct.
We need serious people to do serious jobs and get them done. And it's just not happening.
MP Soc and I, like every week, we seem to bring this up, that St. Maarten in general is late getting things done. I mean, if you look at our solid waste management, if you look at the tourism authority, all the things that other people have done already, St. Maarten's late. The good thing about that is that you no longer need to be really smart. You just need to kind of copy.
Copy
it's
paste.
Like benchmark, right? Take the best from the industry. That's
right.
It.
And you don't have to travel to do that.
Exactly. So the focus is actually on getting things here done, right? Like I brought up, for example, with justice. She mentioned that in Curacao, they've adjusted the laws. They've upped the traffic fines. The public prosecutor's office has managed to hire more people so they can collect the fines. So enforcement is up on traffic violations, which here it's the Wild West in terms of cars without insurance, without license plates, scooters without helmets, et cetera, right? So there's a self-funding way to improve compliance, and it doesn't cost you as a country more, right? So there's all kinds of things that just needs to get done. It isn't anymore about traveling to figure out what to do. So I don't like going to Holland, lobbying for money, better financing terms on your loans.
Those are necessary.
The JVO, the cooperation between the Justice Department. Like there's certain things I get, right? But the other stuff, I'm sorry, I just don't see it.
And this is exactly the realization that I'm trying to get everybody on the same page on, because I said, you can't keep going out thinking that you're going to pick up some amazing light bulb idea and bring it back home, because the problem still exists here. And I couldn't have said it better than what you just described. But how do I keep repeating the same thing over and over to them, and hopefully one day they're gonna say, okay, yes, you're right. You have to admit it yourself. Nothing is getting done, and the problem is that because of the fact, right, that you have politicians, they think that by showing pictures of them traveling and showing pictures of them engaged in a conversation or a conference for a hot topic item that is important to a particular group here on the island, that only gets you so far. You're just saying, I'm engaged in a conversation over let's say maritime, before anyone thinks I'm picking on them today. Why would you go to China to talk maritime when right here we have everything right here, and we know what we need to do by all of the persons that are here in the maritime sector. We know we need to improve the immigration at the bridge. We know we need to expand the bridge. The only reason I would expect you to travel is to find financiers for expanding the bridge. But we know our issues, but we're not actively like trying to fix those issues, and this is my concern and my frustration.
Well, and quite frankly, and if you need to go travel to country X to help solve a problem, well, how many meetings have I done and boards and committees that I serve on off island where I don't physically travel there?
And that was my experience as minister. I never traveled for anything that I accomplished, even when it came to making, trying to get an agreement with
Zoom
the French
teams,
side and
yeah.
France for the radar.
Yeah.
It's a 7-year project that no one did. And I'm so happy the other project, and I'm going to say it because what happened with during my tenure, it wasn't even long. But yes, 2 days ago, the lawyer from Switzerland, when they, I don't know if anyone saw the Met office, that they're basically like ISO certified. And the lawyer from Switzerland called me and said, we got to do this because you started the work with us. I listened to what the departments needed. A 7-year project was finalized for the radar finally. And then this ISO certification was done, which is now today. It's finally done today, which is why the minister of TEAT can now take a picture with them. So, but I don't need to take that picture for it because I know the commitment I did. And you want to know what I built up with my colleagues in the ministry?
Trust.
Reliability. So they knew that I listened to them, and I didn't need to take a picture beforehand until it came to fruition. And the lady sent me a message. She said, I want to recognize you online on my LinkedIn. I said, well, I have to reactivate my LinkedIn account because I stopped it when I moved from London. So I said, maybe, this is inspiration to reactivate my LinkedIn account. The reason I'm saying this is not because I feel like this was my project and I did this, I should get the recognition. No, I'm no longer the minister of TEAT, but I committed to listening to the departments of what they needed. It was not about me going to Switzerland to be certified. It was about the persons here being heard, and then you made a commitment to them to improve their certification so they can better serve our country. So the picture taking, the traveling has to stop, because you are not serving your ministry if you keep thinking that you're going to get some brilliant idea off island. And this is where I need the government to focus. And it's a year later. I said, listen, I'm going to be busy with my work for 1 year, and I don't take pictures and tell people what I'm doing. The ones that know what I'm doing, they know what I'm doing because I've been collecting my research for what I'm working on legislative wise. I don't announce what I'm working on beforehand. I've never done that in my career. If someone asks me, sure, I'll squeeze it out. But I like my stuff to be done before I present it. Because when I present, I don't want to give you false hope that something is coming and I never execute. I'm not a BSer and I never have been. So, but the problem is that I need the government. I need everybody in government in a decision-making position, whether it's an MP or a minister, to realize you have issues in each ministry that has been carried over every administration. And until you acknowledge and handle those problems, we will continue to pretend like we're working by sending pictures of while we're traveling. I am not going to deny the fact that we are entitled to it, but this is not a continuing education for you. Because you're entitled to it, you get to keep going on it. You got to bring something back on the table.
So we need to wrap up, but I hear frustration in your voice.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think the pace of change that government is bringing for the island is the pace that's necessary
Absolutely
to support
not.
the island?
I'm not, absolutely not. Because the frustration, my frustration is I still feel that I 100% feel that they get distracted in showing that they're working. So you're showing, and I've said this from the time I came into government. So it's not something that I'm picking on, this administration versus the previous. What I see in government is that we're so occupied and we're so distracted by proving to the public that we're doing something, that we show them pictures of anything, but then we're not really working on something like that is going to be completed and tangible and executed, and then I can take the praise. And this is my fear of when people are presenting new projects, and maybe they're presenting old projects that never finished because others took pictures before. And in my decision making in Parliament, when it comes to decisions or certain motions, I brought this up. I said, no, I'm not going to support something that was done before and didn't work. I'm not going to support another pilot project to go do a breakfast program for 3 months when I know that the children are hungry. It needs to be a permanent fix. And this is the frustration you're hearing, Emil. 2 years ago, you had the pilot program done and it was finished. I don't know if anyone remembers when Miss Regina Labega was head of the airport fed schools too.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a problem that I need to do a pilot project for to prove that the problem exists. It is an existing problem. But because we want to stay in the news and seem like we're doing something new and important, we regurgitate things that don't work for us. I need a permanent fix. The permanent fix is, we have this issue. How can we allocate money from this portion to this? Because if we expect our students to basically get a decent education, I need to make sure that they go to school with a full belly and they can concentrate. So what are we gonna do? Maybe we can reallocate travel expenses for a year and do the food program for a year instead of a 3-month pilot project.
It would seem to me that
Sorry.
MP, thank you.
Not sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It seems to me that if we stop thinking of ourselves as this big country and started to think of ourselves as the small town that we actually are, and focused on getting the job done here, we might make some progress. MP, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
This was good. You see, you guys woke me up at the end. Now I was happy, and then now I'm going to go and I'm like,
Emil Lee, thank you so much for being here. I'm way late. It's 5 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock. Your marine and tropical weather update is coming next, brought to you by K Beach Club and Restaurant. K like character 906, right here in the Northeast Caribbean.